Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 104, written by Trash0729. She witnessed an ordinary blind panel pop back into the world out of nowhere. Necessary info. I have a sliding glass door to my back deck, which is shaded with one of those sliding sets of blinds that are commonly found in motels, as far as I've seen them before. If you Google search sliding door hanging blinds, you should see exactly what I mean. They're panels that hang vertically and layer over top of each other to condense as you push them open. Occasionally, they pop out of their little sockets and fall off if tampered with. We have only lived here for about 5 months, but this took place maybe 2 months or so after moving into this house. My son is 2 and he's curious about anything that moves in a swinging motion, so he messes with these blinds a lot. On a couple occasions, he's accidentally knocked a panel or two down by trying to get them to swing back and forth. Like I said, they just pop out and fall down, and I always hang them back up immediately because I don't like the chaotic look of missing panels, obviously. Anyway, one day I noticed one of the panels was missing, so I looked around the immediate area to find it, not knowing when it had fallen off. Mind you, these are hard to miss because they're like 8 feet long, give or take, and probably a good 4 or 5 inches wide, but I didn't see it laying anywhere nearby. I shrugged it off and went about my day, thinking I'd just ask my partner if something had happened to it, whenever he woke up. Fast forward to that point in the day. I bring up the missing panel to my partner, and he says he noticed it was missing too, but didn't know where it had gone, nor did he see it happen. So I'm thinking, okay, it couldn't have gone far, and since neither of us had thrown it away, it had to be here in the house, presumably somewhere close by. Although the panels aren't heavy, they're long and would be awkward for a child to try to carry or drag, but I didn't rule the possibility out until I had looked everywhere and couldn't find it. Again, it would be hard to miss one of those panels laying around, so I'm stumped by this point. I go back to the door and slide the blinds open and close several times, trying to see if it had gotten caught somehow. As I'm doing this, my partner is observing the track that each clasp is attached to, finding that there was no way one of those panels could get jammed up into it, even with intentional force. I'm swinging the panels back and forth, inspecting each one, finding nothing unusual about any of the remaining panels. Just as I'm about to give up and call it lost, I slide the blinds closed one more time, the exact same way I had just done 4 or 5 times prior, leading up to this moment, and the panel appears out of nowhere, right in front of my eyes. I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed, but the evidence was right there. The panel materialized directly in my line of sight, not in my peripheral vision or after I had turned around, but literally from the exact point my eyes were focused on. It appeared in what I can best describe as a visual pop, right side up and about 6 inches away from the actual track. This is the part that is kind of tricky to explain, but it was sort of curved towards me, like it had been a little bunched up, giving it enough momentum to fall into my direction, top end first. It didn't just fall like it had been hanging in the bunch, the way I'd seen them fall a handful of other times. It was more like the panel had been hanging higher than the others. I really hope that makes enough sense to give a mental image, but trying to put it into words the way it fell is what has held me back from creating this post. It was so unusual and unexpected that I didn't even have time to flinch. I just stood there gawking at the panel that had just respawned. My partner had been standing there the entire time, but of course he turned away when I said I had given up and went to slide the blinds closed. He didn't see it materialize, but he was definitely just as stunned to see it laying there on the floor, after we both checked thoroughly that there was nowhere for it to have gotten caught in the other panels. The only explanation we could come up with is that it got unclipped from its own clasp and somehow ended up clipping perfectly into another one behind another panel. But this isn't easy to do on purpose, let alone by accident. Another issue is that if sliding the blinds caused it to come loose, why wouldn't that have happened one of the first 5 times I slid the blinds open and closed? And lastly, I saw it appear from about 6 inches away from the track where it would have supposedly been attached, had that been the case, rather than seeing it pop out of a clasp. This is by far the most bizarre thing I've ever witnessed that has no paranormal aspects to it. I'm not so sure I believe in that realm, but I do believe in glitches. If I hadn't fully seen exactly what had happened, I'd probably brush it off. But even months later to this day, I'm 100% certain this panel had blipped out of existence and then right back before my eyes. Case notes, file number 104. Well, these disappearing glitches are right in my backyard. The only thing I've personally experienced too, though unlike for you, my object never returned. But what's going on here, I really do wonder. I've read quite a few glitches of individual people being out of phase with reality, but they're always kept gravitationally bound to the planet. I suppose it does stand to reason that inanimate items could be stuck in the same way that humans are, depending on what's causing the phenomena. Perhaps this is what is responsible for all of our missing items, or many of them. From socks to tennis balls, all the way to rematerializing distorted blind panels. Trippy. I do have some questions regarding the pop-in. Was there a sound involved? And also if the panel was the same as it was before, if you inspected it. There's small details, likely nothing, but I wonder if there are alterations to people or items that disappear and then reappear. Or do we come back exactly the same? Some food for thought. Case file number 105. Written by Twirly Girl 313. A father undeserving of love. Dangerous, now dead. Is that really the end though? Not long after my father died, my mother and I were sitting in our living room, discussing various things. This was at night, and we were recovering from my father's death. Now, to be clear, my father was not a nice person. He was a narcissist, an alcoholic, and an all-around miserable person to be around. He thought he was superior to everyone else, and the world owed him a living. We were able to finally get him into a VA nursing home towards the end of his life, as we could not care for him at home as he dried out and threatened us daily. While we were sitting there, quietly talking, we heard his dreadful tread coming down the stairs. Boom, boom, boom. It was definitely his tread or gait. We both froze and stared at each other. When he got to the bottom, the disturbance stopped. I had goose flesh like never before, and it was difficult to sleep that night without one eye open, as he always threatened to kill us in our sleep. While he was in the hospital, he would call my mother every single night and tell her the most vile ways in which he would kill her. Fortunately, he was paralyzed from the waist down at this point and could not make good on those threats. I saged our entire house the very next day, corner to corner, every square inch. Did I mention that my VCR would regularly turn itself on when he was in the hospital, even though it wasn't plugged in? I also had horrible, vivid dreams of his hand reaching out from under my bed to grab me. Case notes, file number 105. This is a quick story that turned my blood into a boil. The only positive takeaway from this is that it does appear that the spirits aren't able to interact with the living world to that great of an extent. Perhaps it takes a great deal of concentration or practice to be able to manipulate objects, so he wasn't able to hurt anyone because he was new to the experience. So while your dead abusive father is in your house, I think you can hold him at bay. That said, you should move out if at all possible. Or did you already, since your father passed away? The author quickly responded, saying, "No, we are still in the same house, but the 2-day generous application sage cleansing did the trick. He's no longer around." If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and feel free to watch more on my channel. I have a lot more content.